Hello, beautiful souls. This is take two or version number two. I just made a video answering a question and I realized I just feel done being a teacher, sort of. I'm trying to find a little balance. And so I've spent a lot of time on this channel teaching, and now I'm feeling the desire to spend a lot of time more just being authentic and sharing. So, someone asked me the question, tell us why you believe non-duality is not for you. Woo! My authentic reaction to that question is, oh my God. On the surface, it sounds like such an easy question to answer, but it really isn't. And my head starts spinning with all these ideas and this just deep wish to educate people and to help people to clarify all this information. I think the most, for like 20 years, I was very passionate about non-duality. And then I finally woke up to the fact that it wasn't non-duality, that it was neo-non-duality or Neo-Advaita. Yes, I am Jorgal. What an interesting name, Jorgal Terhefeyan. So it's whether or not non-duality is for me. It's more to the question of what is actual non-duality, and my prediction is that if we just randomly collected 100 people who said I'm into non-duality, almost all of them would actually not. They would be into neo non-duality or fake non-duality. So that's my response to that question. Is it sounds so simple, but it's really not. And part of what was so intense for me was I realized it took me 14 years to firmly say no to Neo-Advaita. I realized roughly 2004 that it wasn't healthy and that it wasn't accurate non-duality. And it literally took me another 14 years, 14 or 15, somewhere around 2018, 2019, I just turned my back on it. Hi, I've got 3 live viewers. If anyone wants to say hello or share their thoughts, please do. So I'll tell you why Neo-Advaita, while pretend non-duality isn't for me, because it almost wrecked my life. Because a dear friend of mine had a complete nervous breakdown from it and still hasn't recovered 10, 11 years later, because it's really harmful, because it's really, people are talking a lot about gaslighting nowadays, and gaslighting is so confusing. So gaslighting is this phenomenon where, like, let's say I say, like, hey, you're being mean. And the person I say that to takes it and says, the only reason you're saying that is because you're insecure. So basically what they did is they took my criticism, which may or may not be valid, and they attacked me. Or if I said, hey, you're abusing me, and they say something like, well, you're too sensitive. That's a way of taking, it creates a psychologically complex situation. And that's what Neo-Advaita is a complex, manipulative word game that was very hard for me to get out of. And I've gotten out of it now, except now I'm in the process of unwinding all the distortions. So Jorhal said, did you do regular spiritual practices? Yes, I did. I did. I first started meditating around 1990. And went through phases of being very serious about and then I discovered other spiritual practices, and was at different points in that time I was very serious about it, and then I discovered Neo-Advaita in 19 discovered I found I found it, or it found me, in 1998. So I'd almost had about 8 or 9 years of pretty serious practice beforehand. And so that was actually a problem in a sense, because you could say from all those other practices, I was more sensitive to energy, and I was kind of tuned in a little bit to spiritual realities and to spiritual things. And Neo-Advaita is a partial truth. So it's like I could feel and experience the partial truth of it. You could say my soul was more open, and that actually ended up being a problem for me, because I tuned in, and I would have such powerful experiences when I would do Neo-Advaita practices or go to Neo-Advaita satsangs. It was very powerful. So it was so that made me even more susceptible. It's kind of, I'm glad you asked that. I don't know how the heck to pronounce your name, but it's a cool name, Jorgal. That is like the coolest name I've ever read. It feels like something from Lord of the Rings or from Game of Thrones. But I think that's the case for many people, is that they're able to, because they're more open, that Neo-Advaita will give you a spiritual experience, just not a transformative spiritual experience. So it was kind of a double-edged sword, having done practices beforehand. Great question, Jorgal. Anyone else has any questions or comments? Please feel free to post them or ask. Jorgal wrote, "Wouldn't you rather say that Neo-Advaita gives you the final realization without any of the necessary preparation, and that's why it's dangerous?" Oh, I misunderstood your question. I would say not the final realization. I would say a taste of the final realization. And on top of it, I would say that it gives no way to actually complete the journey. My experience of Neo-Advaita is it gave me a taste of the destination, a very strong taste. But what it didn't give me was how to actually arrive in the destination, how to stay in the destination. Neo-Advaita helped me go on many trips. It helped me have many vacations to the destination. But what it didn't do was allow me to permanently move in. It allowed me to rent, but not own. And that's beautifully said, Jorgal. And I'm just wondering if I'm wondering if you and I have spoken before. Yeah. So I would agree that what you're saying is so close. Oh, okay, I'm thinking of someone else. You remind me, your name and your languaging reminds me of some. So that's what I would say, is it gives me a taste of the final realization without any way to actually fully realize. I was just reading a quote by Ramana Maharshi today, who said that realization is the end of suffering. And Neo-Advaita, without the preparation, gave me the ability to temporarily experience that, but not to how to permanently experience that. And here's the kicker. In my case, Neo-Advaita took me into more suffering. As I predict, anyone who comes to Neo-Advaita with significant suffering, I predict it will take you into more suffering. I've noticed this. The people who turn to Neo-Advaita who already have a lot of suffering above and beyond the normal human level of human suffering, like PTSD or addiction or depression, a deep emotional imbalance, that Neo-Advaita will just take you deeper into that. People who don't seem to have that, who just are sort of struggling with what it is to be human, Neo-Advaita may or may not harm. But if you already have a lot of suffering, I predict it'll take you nowhere but down. Love the question. Did I answer your question? Maybe we disagree. I'm not sure, but I'm appreciating your sharing. Almost wish I had this set up to where I could bring you up to chat live, but well said, Jorhal. And Ramana, that's just what I was reading from Ramana Maharshi. Jorgal wrote, in my opinion, Neo-Advaita is verbal gymnastics, and its followers soak up the language without having the underlying spiritual experience. I just read something by Ramana Maharshi today, and I'll see if I can find it. And I'll post it, actually. I think you would appreciate it, Jorgal, as would probably anyone else, who said, I love the synchronicity. I literally was reading something today. So in this quote, Ramana is talking about the difference between listening to a teaching, which I believe is relating to exactly to what you're saying, of soaking up the verbal. So I'm going to try and read this. There's a lot of Sanskrit. Some people think there are different stages in jhana, knowledge. The self is nitya aparoksha, ever realized, ever knowing. Sravana, hearing the teachings, these people argue, should therefore be aparoksha jnana, direct experience, and not paroksha jnana, indirect experience. But jhana should result in dukkha nivritti, loss of misery, whereas sravana, and this is what you're talking about, listening, hearing, or thinking about the teachings over and over, does not bring it about. Therefore, they say, through aparoksha, it is not unshaken. The rising of vasanas is the cause of it being weak, meaning it not being. You know what? I'm just going to post this and let all of you. You can take a look at it if you want. It's kind of intricate. I don't really like. I feel like I'm going to have to translate it a bunch and break it down. But the idea is that listening to a teaching and having the teaching in your head is not the same as realization. And Jorgal just said it so well. Verbal gymnastics, soaking up the language without having the underlying spiritual experience. And in my own, and this is what I would add to that. By the way, Jorgal, I'm just loving what you're saying. Is just the problem with Neo-Advaita is it will give you a spiritual experience, just not the final one. It'll give you a taste, a temporary taste. And that can actually become addictive. And it did in my case, and it did in many other people's case that I've met. Neo-Advaita will not allow you to live in that, I don't want to call it experience, but to live in that actual state. It gave me and many other people I've talked to a temporary taste. And then, as Ramana said here, the vasanas came back, as it's said in other places, the gunas, the states of mind, particularly rajas and tamas guna, come back. And self-inquiry isn't designed to deal with those things. Yes. No, it's okay. Yeah. You mean, yeah, you mean the final knowledge, the Vedanta, the final knowledge, the final knowing. No, you're doing great. You're contributing so much. Thank you. Um, so yeah, we're all waking up from waking up. That not everyone that offers a path to awakening is offering a genuine path. I fell for it. Many people fall for it. And so what I experienced, and I'm starting to meet other people who experience the same thing, is as someone who had deep suffering, Neo-Advaita really became addictive and really took me on a deep downward slide, which is why I call this channel Recovering from Neo-Advaita. Because if it takes you down far enough, it really is a process to recover from, just as you would recover from an addiction or from brainwashing. It's not that coming out of that is not an overnight matter, and it can be very complex, the process of coming out of that and overcoming it. So 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 I've kind of been doing this channel, just kind of coming on and doing talks whenever I feel like it, but I'm starting to get more organized. I'm working on a book. I just attended a support group that was created by someone else, and then I'm about to create one. So I'm going to start an email list. And so right here, right now, the easiest way to, how do I want to, so if you're watching this video and you want to be on that email list, I'm going to show you how to do that in one moment. It's nice and easy to just, it's very easy to just come on and give talks, but now I'm learning how to actually structure things. So one moment. All right. So if you want to be on, get on my email list, go to that. I just posted a link there. That'll take you to a video. Actually, one moment, and I'm going to fix that up. Okay, this is happening live. This is live television. So you'll see underneath the description of that video, I just posted it, so you might need to refresh it. Underneath that is an email, and I put a little thing, like instead of putting the @ symbol, I put the letters AT to protect against spam. But just send me an email and say that you want to be on my mailing list, and I won't spam you, but I'll just let you know about events and things that happen. Anton, wow, I could literally see my life situation fall apart while I continued my self-inquiry, but who cared about my life? Yes, the concern was just more thoughts to overcome, transcend. So dangerous. Yes. Anton, that just so speaks to my experience. It's like the further I went down that path, the more I got apart. And then, Anton, you've so beautifully expressed why Neo-Advaita is so tricky. Jorgal said it's mental gymnastics, and it also becomes a word maze. It becomes a mental maze, right? So it's like you could see that your life was getting worse, but then you were like, well, who cares about my life as if it's my life? So who cares what happens? And it just becomes this intricate maze that's very hard, can be very hard to extricate itself from. And what you just wrote right there is a beautiful, beautiful example of the web that it is. Jorgal wrote, self-inquiry works wonders. So I would agree that self-inquiry works wonders if you're properly prepared. And here's the main difference, in my view, between Advaita Vedanta and Neo-Advaita, is Advaita Vedanta does not recommend self-inquiry unless your mind is properly prepared. Ramana Maharshi said, let me think of the exact quote. I'm going to have to paraphrase. He said that unless you have one pointedness of mind, self-inquiry will fail. And that you need to have a primarily sattvic mind in order to do that. And he would say things like, the path of self-inquiry is only for the most mature minds or only the most ripe souls. So, in fact, and here's where I'm going to agree with you, Jorgal. He said, for the one who is properly prepared, the path of self-inquiry is easy. If you've met the prerequisites, according to Ramana, according to Ramana, if you've met the prerequisites, it's very easy. And according to Ramana, if you haven't met the prerequisites, it's impossible. And so if you haven't met the prerequisites, I was trying to use it as an escape. And the people who Neo-Advaita has really harmed, all the ones I've met so far have all had deep, deep existential suffering. And then they would turn to self-inquiry and it would become an escape. So that's my personal experience. And then also, like I said, I've met plenty of people who that's happened to them. And yes. Wow, I'm really touched. Jorgal. I'm appreciating your input, and I'm Anton. Thank you for sharing your experience. So one of the things I'm really excited about is we're going to start having support groups where people can talk about their experience, who feel they've been harmed by Neo-Advaita. Well, so Jorgal wrote, okay, ditch the word self and call it inquiry. So again, according to Ramana Maharshi and Adi Shankara, like self-inquiry is only for people who have a properly prepared mind. So that's just, I've researched enough that I just accept it as a fact. And it goes into the Hindu teachings of the gunas, of rajas and tamas guna, which are qualities of the mind. And self-inquiry, if you have excess tamas or rajas, self-inquiry will not reduce it. If you have a lot of tamas, which people with a lot of suffering do, self-inquiry will make it worse. If you have a lot of rajas, you just won't really make any progress. So that's based on my own experience of someone having a lot of tamas and rajas in their mind, but also watching, Neo-Advaita satsangs for like 20 plus years. It's a very deep topic. So again, according to Ramana, the path of self-inquiry, or just the path of inquiry, is only for people who are properly prepared. And he doesn't talk about this a lot, but he makes some very strong statements. And that's where, see, the thing is Advaita Vedanta is a conversation. And Neo-Advaita is like taking little snippets of the conversation and said, this is non-duality. But if you actually look at the whole conversation, I'm trying to get my hand over, there we go. Over and over and over and over and over, it's pointed out that inquiry or self-inquiry is the final step, and that there's many steps that precede it. Whereas Neo-Advaita says, just practice self-inquiry. Destroyed my life, or made my life a lot worse. I mean, it was already bad, but I know people whose lives it has destroyed. I know someone who had, I know someone who had a nervous breakdown, and this person's brother had a full-on psychotic break from practicing self-inquiry. He wasn't properly prepared. He wasn't properly guided. So Yeah. Anton said, yes, it became an escape for me, but I didn't realize it because yes, it is not as obvious as a real drug. And because it seems virtuous, it's spiritual. We're seeking ultimate freedom, right? It would be like, like if you shoot some heroin in your arm, it's bad for you, right? Like if you were like a compulsive overeater, like if you're eating past the point of feeling full and it hurts your body, you know. But Neo-Advaita, self-inquiry is a form of escape. We were falsely taught that it's helpful and good. And to boot, it gives a temporary spiritual experience that feels good and seems good. So this is part of the web. That's part of why I said I realized in 2004, but it wasn't, I think it was 2019. I can't remember, was it 2018 or 19? That I finally was like, no. Like it took me 14 or 15 years after I realized Neo-Advaita was harmful, just like a drug. It took me that long to leave it. It became a way for me to not have to deal with anything, just ignoring every mind content. Yes. And I would add to that, ignoring every feeling. Yes. I just want to keep going. And I have an appointment. I'm going to dance. Jorgal, I'm exploring what forms of spiritual practice work for me. Yes, I still do some, but I'm doing this kind of experiment of what ones work for me. So yeah. So I've posted that link, and so that'll give you a, like I said, that link I posted, and I'll post it again. Underneath that video is an email address, and if you send me an email, I'll put you on an email list. I won't spam people. I'm going to start doing events and getting a little more organized and supporting people. And honestly, Anton, it's posts like yours that really inspire me. Yeah, because it's tricky. Bypassing. Spiritual bypassing. Spiritual Neo-Advaita is spiritual bypass. So glad. I'm so glad to connect with you. Yeah, truly. And you found it in good timing. I'm in conversation with someone else who does similar work, like talking about Neo-Advaita, and we're talking about forming, support groups, and so good timing. And I'm working on a book, and what I also want to do is start collecting people's experiences to put in the book. So yeah, I'm delighted. Anton, that you found this. Jorgal, I really appreciate your input and your feedback. We may not agree 100% on everything, and I really appreciate everything you shared. Yeah, thank you all so much for dropping by. Wow, 28 minutes, 29 minutes. Time flies when you're having fun. So I wish everyone a beautiful, beautiful morning, afternoon, or evening. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, they say, just don't drink today. And in Neo-Advaita Addicts Anonymous, we say, just don't think today. Just don't think just don't think Neo-Advaita thoughts today. And go have some positive thoughts and maybe some dualistic thoughts. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Much gratitude, much love.